Yeah, good morning, traders. Chris Weston here, Head of Research, just getting you ready for the start of the Asian trading session, having a look at what we've been seeing in US trade and going through the charts with some news and views that I've caught my imagination this morning. We have closed out the quarter. The S&P closed up 8.2%, led really by REITs. REITs up 12.3% as an S&P sector. If we're taking a US centric approach, this tech's done really well in the quarter. I mean, we've seen the Nasdaq closing up 11.2%. The Russell up 4.1%. I think it's interesting to see that recent switch from value into growth. I don't see that lasting too long. I do think that the 10-year is somewhat mispriced. I know you can argue that that the price is true. But I think market wants to sort of see the 10-year higher. They're just not prepared to trade it as such at the moment. But we've seen the 10-year on the quarter going from around 174 down to 146, 147, where we currently sit at the moment. Been no real change on the session. And if we focus really on the here and now, so let's have a look at what's been happening. Immediately, you can have a look at the chart here. The S&P closing up 0.1%. If you actually go into the sectors on the session, energy's up 1.3%. You've got industrials also working quite well, up 0.8%. Staples up strongly. Financials are up 0.5% or so. So some good gains coming through there. On the bottom of the pack, actually, as we close out the month, we've seen the REITs, the worst performing space. That's been the best on the quarter, but the worst on the session. They're down 0.8%. So really, energy has been the one that we've been looking out for. Now, we are going into the session ahead. You are seeing a situation where we're going to be focused on those crude exposures. We are getting some headlines coming through from OPEC. OPEC debates whether to hike output in August or September. There's a few more that we need to take on. But yeah, there's a pretty good chance that we are going to get output hikes coming through. The question is when it's going to happen. If they certainly come out and say that there's going to be no hikes or no output increases that are coming through, and they sort of give that definition, you'd expect oil to have a decent rally on the back of that. You'd imagine somewhere $2 to $3 off the bat fairly quickly. So yeah, do watch your exposures. We're going into the OPEC meeting coming up, but you can see on a headline basis the S&P market continues to make a little bit higher. It's grinding higher. Volatility is pretty low there. The VIX is 15.8%. No real change there. It's been European markets which have underperformed. You've seen the CAC down about 90 basis points or so. The DAX down a touch. I think that's probably weighed on some of the European, on the euro to an extent. So I think seems to be sort of de-risking trade coming out of Europe, people taking some of those exposures off the table. And it's interesting there because, we haven't really seen too much of a move in equity markets, but go into bonds. We've got the 10-year still trading 147, as I say. No one really prepared to take too much risk on. We've seen the ADP payrolls number coming out. What was that? 692,000, better than expected. But I just wouldn't read into the payrolls number. If anyone's saying they're going, we're seeing an above consensus ADP, that's going to be good for payrolls. I'm not so sure. I think the ADP has been an absolutely awful predictor recently, so I just wouldn't read too much into that. Obviously, great to see that the ADP roll is giving us better readings on jobs. We always want to see that, at least from a humanitarian perspective anyway, but that's something we are watching closely. We've seen Chicago PMI numbers coming out. We've also seen pending home sales. But again, that hasn't really caused too much movement in the bond markets. But what we have seen is a stronger US dollar, and that's something that we do need to focus on. So let's start with the dollar index, mostly euro, as I say, but we've got it really just coming up and just testing these sort of 18th and 21st of June highs. Are we going to get a convincing break of that now? So, of course, we are coming into tonight's session. In the session ahead, we do get the US ISM manufacturing numbers. That could promote some upside in bond yields. That would then flow through into the US dollar. But I think the eyes of the prize is really on the payrolls on Friday. Where do I sit on that? Put a gun to my head. I think that we're going to see a stronger than expected payrolls number, not because of the ADP, but because of other factors we're seeing playing through. I think the market is probably swarming to the idea that we're probably going to get an above consensus. The consensus is 700,000 at the moment. But I think we'd probably need to see somewhere north of 800,000 to really get a good sell-off in the back end of the Treasury curve, cause the dollar to really strengthen materially. I think you probably want to see average hourly earnings probably above 50 basis points month on month, and you probably want to see the unemployment rate trickle down quite nicely as well. Some of that slack coming out the labour market to give the Fed a bit more emphasis. So that's something we are watching, but the dollar is looking a little bit perky on the session. Let's have a look at dollar yen. Got that really nice move up. So it sort of came down to test the lows from yesterday. Bang, now we're up again. Similar to what we've seen in the Dixie, just testing really key levels here. So can it break through Euro dollar, a similar situation there as the Dixie, as you'd imagine. The two work very much in opposite. So we're just coming down into the 118.50 level. We're back down here. A break of this level, I think, is going to be very powerful indeed. Now, was this just some end of month end shenanigans, quarter end shenanigans playing through? We'll have to see. But if we do obviously get a stronger ISM manufacturing number, if we do get a stronger payrolls number, we are going to be breaking out into this sort of no man's land, down below, where we really don't have a huge amount of technical support down to 117. So that's going to be really nicely looked at. So dollar yen looking to break out, euro dollar looking to break out. Let's have a look at dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss has broken out. So we've got that higher high playing through. Can that build? That would probably be the preference there, because we've already seen that the bulls have got the strength in that one at the moment. If you have a look at Aussie dollar, we haven't quite made those lows at the moment. So it's not looking as weak as some of the other pairs that we've looked at there. Euro yen, not a huge amount to really talk about there. We've seen a little bit of strength playing through in euro yen. Aussie yen, so we can't really say there was a particularly risk-off session with an Aussie yen's having a nice move up to the upside. And we saw sterling yen finding a few buyers as well. I think Andy Haldane being out on the wires talking about inflationary pressures, as you might imagine. But I think we've seen a broad US dollar bid coming through in markets, despite equity markets really moving, despite treasury markets moving. And maybe that's some month-end flows. Maybe that's just some people pre-positioning ahead of payrolls. But if we have a look at how that's manifested into gold, it's interesting, despite that US dollar strength, that gold has pushed up about 50 basis points, 0.5%. We are defending this 1760, 7061 level with absolute vigor at the moment. You can see we've tried to take out those lows yesterday. Buyers came in. We tried to take those out again. And we've settled back above that level. So the bulls defending 1761. You can see just the sort of sheer importance of this support level playing through, and the buyers are stepping in. I think if we do get a material break, then you're obviously looking down at 1721. Are we going to see real yields moving higher this week? Are we going to see treasury yields moving higher? And that will put a bid into the dollar. And I think gold prices will then resume that natural correlation. We've got oil prices pretty much unchanged. You can look at this doji that you've been seeing. That is the absolute quintessential doji pattern there, the huge indecision ahead of this OPEC meeting. Are we going to get those output hikes? I think the market's discounting some, but it's probably going to come in August or September. That's something that you do need to concern yourself with there as well. And then let's have a quick look at crypto. Well, we've got that selling continue to play through. It's a bit of a messy picture across the crypto landscape at the moment. We're down about 2.9% in Bitcoin. Link's been one that I've been banging on about. We got the break of the downtrend. We came back. You can clearly see we've had the retest. Really can't be too bullish on this one until we get a break of this sort of 20 level, which I keep talking about. And I think once we get that, then I think it might go off to the races. I'll be looking at long positions in that. Ethereum, where we always see some flow, that's had a really nice move. Ethereum actually looks really good. That would probably be one of my preferences in the space. That maybe up to 4.6%. So that's where the outperformance has come. You can see it's holding this 5-day exponential. So I think at the moment, until Link can really break out, I can go through some of the other coins, but at the moment it does seem that Ethereum is the place to be. And you can see that Bitcoin Ethereum differential working quite nicely at the moment. Traders looking at short Bitcoin, long Ethereum as a pairs trade. That might be one to look at. But yeah, really nice price action in Ethereum and one to watch out. So we're watching ISM manufacturing tonight. I don't expect it to necessarily be a volatility event. I don't think the jobless claims are going to be a volatility event, although they are one for macro watchers to watch out for. But we've got the dollar really outperforming, some really interesting dollar moves playing through there. Equity markets fairly sanguine with Europe underperforming, and we've got some interesting moves in Ethereum, which seems to be the place to be if you want to trade it from the long side. So look for that in the session and trade it with Pepperstone.